You are listening to a podcast by the Little School of Happiness. My name is Sandra Hayes and I'm your host. Here you will find episodes on all the Vedic teachings like yoga, Ayurveda and Vedic astrology. For more information about me and my offerings, please go to sandrahayes.eu, or if you're in Germany, sandrahayes.de. Hello and welcome again to another episode on the nakshatras. If you're just tuning in and you're not sure what nakshatras are, I suggest you go back about 5 episodes now and listen to the introduction to nakshatras. They are lunar mansions, lunar constellations that the moon travels through on its path. And it stays for about 1 day in each of the nakshatras. So each lunar day is flavored by a certain energy and a certain quality that has an influence on us. Not only in a general sense when the moon travels through, but also in our birth chart. If the moon is in a certain nakshatra in our birth chart. But not only the moon, although the moon is the most important one because it is his path, and these lunar mansions are also in mythology seen as the moon's 27 wives, because there are 27 of these constellations. And so he visits each of his wives for 1 night and 1 day on his travel. And in each wife's home, there is obviously a different kind of energy and a different kind of nourishment and different problems as well. Each wife, there's certain things that are going really well and certain things that are not going so well. And the moon obviously also has a favorite wife, which is Rohini, which we've already spoken about. But today we will talk about, again, another very special nakshatra. Not that they're not all special, but this one really is a very special one. It's called Ardra Nakshatra. And Ardra Nakshatra is the storm of transformation. Ardra is a nakshatra that is completely in Gemini. So it begins at 6 degrees 40 minutes in Gemini and goes until 20 degrees Gemini. So it's right in the middle of Gemini. And Gemini obviously is Mercury ruled. So there's a little bit of Mercury influence there as well. And the name means something like moist or fresh or wet. And also that can mean tearful as well. So wet, it's the symbol is a drop. And usually it's said to be a teardrop. And the meaning of it is the storm and the tear, and it's also fresh, so it's also a refreshing, the way that a storm can be, difficult and horrible, but it actually cleanses everything. And also when we are going through grief and we have a good cry, then it does cleanse us. And the deity that rules it is Rudra. And Rudra is a very special form of Shiva. He's the fierce storm god. He's an emotional transformer. And I'll tell you about him in a second. But before I tell you about him, the planetary ruler of Ardra is Rahu. And Rahu, as you probably know by now, is not an actual planet, not a graha, not any heavenly body at all. It's a shadow. It's a mathematical point. It's the point where the orbits of moon and sun meet. It's the point that creates the eclipses. And So it stands for things like shadow work, karma, dark karma often as well, or karma that it's not always bad. Darkness simply means that there is no light in it, and light is consciousness and awareness. So darkness means that we are not aware of it yet. We're not conscious of it yet, which makes it difficult, which makes it unknown to us. And so it gives us illusions. We're making up stories about what could it be because we're not familiar with it yet. So Rahu is all about illusions and karma, and he can give us sudden changes and longings as well in some way, because Rahu is the one that he's said to have caused our birth in this life because of the longing that we carry in us, because this is what we really want. This is what we really want to experience. And so all these atmospheric changes that happen in the sky as well, when there's a storm coming, when the moon enters Ardra Nakshatra, then the atmosphere really changes as well. Before that, it was Mrigashira Nakshatra, and we were talking about the deer and the soft hunt and the soft wandering of Mrigashira. But Ardra is not soft at all. It's not gentle. Ardra is a storm. And it's on our journey we were talking about when you look at all the nakshatras as a hero's journey, then Ardra is where we really are. We're in the underworld now. We're not in the comfort zone. We've long left the comfort zone. We have now we're kind of fighting the demons. We're now in the middle of suffering, but an important suffering because it's a cleansing one. And so this nakshatra often brings us into the territory of grief and of release, and also of emotions like anger, but also awakening and disillusioning and destruction also, but destruction of something that was maybe stagnant and that needs to be renewed. And we all know, in our life, life is all about change. And we know that in theory, we all know that. We know that nothing lasts forever. Not our youth and beauty, not our luck, not our money, not our relationships. Nothing lasts forever. But we still seem to hope that it lasts forever. We are still often under the illusion of, I'm here in this situation now. I'm in this stable relationship, in a beautiful home, and I'm earning good amount of money, and I'm resting in the knowledge. Yes, somewhere in theory, I am, of course, aware of the concept that things change and, it can all be over in a moment. But actually, I don't really believe it. I don't believe that my life will ever change. I'm in a wonderful place, and of course, it will stay like that for me. So this is generally the illusion that we are under, and this nakshatra, it destroys that illusion. So it's really, yes, and it does make us cry often. So there's tears when the moon is going through that nakshatra, but there are tears of cleansing and of release, because when we are experiencing change, like when we change our job and we change our relationship, we end a relationship, or any change that we go through, often it's the case that, for example, we're in a relationship and the relationship has become stale and stagnant, but we're not separating because that's not what we do. We are, we're pushing through. And when we finally do decide to separate, it is because we really are drying up. We really are realizing that, no, this is not possible. We can't live like that because we're inwardly drying up. We're inwardly withering far too much. And we just need to face the truth, and we have to, finally go through the disillusioning and cry. We need to cry about it. We need to really separate, and we need to grieve for it. And then, only then, when we have grieved enough, then we can be free for maybe another more beautiful relationship. But the grief is what we have to go through first. So it's in the name. The name means moist or wet, and the symbol is a teardrop, like I said, and sometimes also a storm cloud. And it does represent this emotional storm, this emotional monsoon, the inner weather that really breaks open the heart and brings something that it needed to crack out, some long, hidden truth that has to come out. So when we talk about this cleansing quality of this nakshatra, then yes, we have to, there's so many toxins that we actually cry out of the body when we cry. Tears contain a lot of toxins, and they're all coming out of ourselves. And this is intense. This is really concentrated emotional energy. And Ardra Nakshatra gives us that, and it doesn't shy away from this or from any hard truth. And, let's face it, we all have to go through something like that. And it's, of course, not something that we want to go through. We don't want any storms. We don't want any tears. But we have to move it. And the good thing about Ardra is that here we can. Here we have the ability for it. So the symbolic meaning of Rudra. Rudra is the deity of Ardra, and he is a really fierce form of Shiva. This was before Shiva began. Shiva is really known for, he meditates a lot. He goes inward a lot and he meditates. But before he became that form of himself, he was Rudra. Rudra is the howler, the storm god. This is the oldest and rawest form of Shiva. He was the first archetype of emotional intensity, really, of grief. And according to some stories, Rudra was born from Brahma's forehead. And he was a being that was born not like others from a womb, but from the mind. So he was born from the ego. And that means he was born from some unfulfilled desire. And Brahma, he created Rudra to populate the world and to take on the role of procreation. But Rudra, he was wild and he was really uncontainable. And when he was born, he cried, he howled, and his tears, they fell onto the earth and they burned holes into the earth. And he didn't want to create. He wanted to retreat. He wanted to just be left alone. And he was so emotional about it, and he was so sorrowful about it. And that sorrow was so overwhelming that Brahma gave him 11 names and 11 forms. And he asked him to go into the world as the embodiment of both healing and destruction. And so he was, in this very old story, Rudra is portrayed as the first divine expression of grief. So the storm that precedes clarity. And he is the god who doesn't ever smile, but he weeps, he cries, and he cries with the whole world. And there's another story also that's maybe more well known, is the Rudra story that is tied to Sati, the first wife of Shiva, and her tragic death, because she was the daughter of Daksha. Daksha plays a role in many of these stories as well. Daksha was a very powerful priest and one of Brahma's sons, and he was a man of a lot of, status and order and ritual and pride, and he despised Rudra because in this form Shiva was the outsider. He was the kind of dreadlocked, loincloth wearing god who lives in cremation grounds and wears snake skins, and so he didn't like him at all, and certainly not as a son-in-law. So he was obviously then very upset when Sati married him anyway, against her father's will. And she stayed really loyal to Shiva. But Daksha never accepted their marriage. So he was holding a great ritual, a fire sacrifice, to which all the gods were invited except Shiva. And Sati, she was feeling really insulted by that, but she still wanted to attend because she wanted to speak to Daksha about it. So at the ritual, Daksha, she was trying to talk to him about it, and Daksha replied to her and even more publicly even spoke against Shiva and humiliated her and him. And Sati was so overcome with shame and with pain that she threw herself into the sacrificial fire. And so she committed suicide in the fire. And when Shiva then heard about her death, his heart broke, and the grief just came out, and he erupted as this form of Rudra. So he became the howler then. And not only the howler, actually, there's another part of the story where he took a lock of his hair, or a dreadlock, and he hurled it down to the ground. And from it then emerged a warrior, Virabhadra, that yogis among you might know as Virabhadrasana, this very fierce warrior, fierce being of fire and of destruction. And with this warrior at his side, Shiva stormed toward the ritual, the sacrifice, and destroyed everything. He destroyed Daksha's altar, and he beheaded Daksha as well. And only after the gods really begged him to calm down, he restored Daksha's life, but instead of his old head, his normal head that he gave him the head of a goat. And so then, though, he took the dead body of his wife, and he went through the world, and he howled and he cried, and he was grieving the death of his wife. And wherever his teardrops fell, there was disease coming into the world. So this is another version of this story. So the core themes of Ardra Nakshatra, as you can very clearly see, are emotional storms, like, immense, intense feelings like grief, and also resentment and anger, and the cleansing that comes with it. So it's like a sacred breakdown. It's where we're asked to feel the storm inside of us, the anger, the grief, the fear, and just let it be there, let it move, let it exist, welcome it even, because it's about not judging these emotions. It's about inviting them. Ardra Nakshatra will tell us what's been buried that needs to come out. A lot of the diseases that we carry in our body today, chronic diseases, cancers, all sorts of diseases, come from hiding our emotions, from suppressing our emotions, and they do need to come out. So this is important work that we have to do. So yes, it is intense and it requires some radical honesty, but it is important that we go through it. Ardra is not easy and it's not polite, but it is right and it is important. And Ardra Nakshatra people with the moon or another important planet in Ardra, they often are real truth tellers. They are people who feel really deeply. They might struggle sometimes as well. They might struggle with anger, maybe anger issues as well, or emotional volatility, or, ungroundedness in their emotional lives, maybe because they don't have the tools to ground themselves. But if they find tools to ground themselves and to channel their anger, then they can really use this energy for a lot of healing and cleansing. It takes a lot of effort and discipline and willpower, but this is what this nakshatra will give us as well. It's the power to work hard, especially in crisis. So the teardrop, that could also be a drop of sweat, sweating, working. Ardra is not lazy. It brings us really the ability to be focused, and focus on our healing as well, on our transformation, on achieving the goal of integrity and authenticity in us as well. It's the healing power of chaos. Ardra knows that sometimes life just has to fall apart. And when it falls apart, it can be rebuilt again. It's that moment where, when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, what it does first, it falls into mush. It doesn't exist anymore. It completely loses its identity. And this is the moment of Ardra. It's the dark night of the soul. And at the same time, though, Rahu, the ruling planet, brings a future-facing direction. He brings a lot of hope and a lot of renewal. And so Ardra people often have a really fresh mind as well. They have fresh ideas and, they're very original and sometimes a bit rebellious as well. And they're not afraid to turn to any subjects or issues that are taboo for other people. So what's important, though, with Ardra is to allow the breakdown, to not resist emotions that might be arising, but to allow yourself to cry or to rage or scream or shake. Shaking meditation, for example, is really good practice here as well. Or anything that brings things into awareness and allows the emotions to be there. And we can also ask ourselves, what am I holding back emotionally? Or what do I need to feel so that I can finally move on? I tend to see our emotions often like little children, like our children, because they nag inside of us. They give us uncomfortable feeling. They give us even, they make us do things that we don't actually want to do. They have a hold on us. Maybe they even create disease in our body. And in that way, they're like little children who want attention. And they're not going to go away. they're only going to get worse and more nagging. But the only way to stop them from being nagging and annoying is that we actually give them attention. Now, they don't have to get what they want. They don't, have to get the ice cream for breakfast, but they do have to get the feeling that we hear them and we love them unconditionally. And then they will relax. And it's the same thing with our emotions. Whatever emotion we have to give it the feeling that it is allowed to be there unconditionally. And then it can relax as well. And also, sometimes it just needs that stormy energy, and we can channel it. We can let that inner fire move through our body and cleanse us. So maybe we can dance, dance freely in the living room, doesn't matter, or go to an ecstatic dance circle or something like that, or do some vigorous yoga or breath work, or also go through the house and vigorously clean and declutter, and also be really truthful with yourself. So sometimes when we ask ourselves, what have I been avoiding, and what needs to be said, even if it's really uncomfortable, and we might not be ready to say it. We might still hold a lot of fear or other, valuable reasons why we can't speak our truth and at this moment, and that is valuable too. But even the act of acknowledging that there is a part of us in us that has been avoiding something that needs to be said eventually. And also, it's important to focus this intensity, because if these intense emotions are not focused, then they explode in all directions. They just scatter and explode. So we need to focus them and channel them. And we can do that by, channeling the energy into a project or into journaling or whatever other method we might have, like dancing or like using the body. We can also meditate on it, lighting a candle for any grief, acknowledging any grief that we might hold. And that's really, really important. The body holds grief so much. And so listening to the grief, we all hold grief. Every time we have lost something valuable or something has broken down, we have a grief. And far too often we are taught to just get on with it or move on with it. And, don't be pathetic and don't be ridiculous. But there is a grief in us that needs to be acknowledged. And so we can maybe finally, through Ardra Nakshatra, listen to that grief and use it as a sacred emotion. So I hope that was helpful again to you. This was all about Ardra Nakshatra, and I look forward to connecting with you again for the next Nakshatra. Bye for now. You were listening to a podcast by the Little School of Happiness. For more information, please go to sandrahayes.eu, or if you are in Germany, sandrahayes.de.